So, Shabana ma'am, I am absolutely delighted to be in conversation with you today. As you know, you already are very someone who I admire a lot, and we last met 3, 4 years ago. So it's wonderful to have you on Filme Shilmy, and congratulations on Halo.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, it's for the first time in your career you're exploring artificial intelligence and the sci-fi genre as a whole. So, what fascinates you the most about this style of cinema?
Well, that I haven't done anything like this ever before. It's something completely out of my league. And as an artist, one constantly wants to be challenged. And to try a genre with which I'm not familiar at all was a very big challenge and therefore exciting. It got the adrenaline rush flowing.
Right. So you're playing Admiral Margaret Paragonsky, an authoritative yet vulnerable figure in the series. So how much were you able to identify with the role as well?
Well, I think as the years go by, I have been so tired of playing the good uh, woman. So it's good to be playing a badass. It feels uh, good, and I must admit that it sort of comes quite easily because I think under all that goodness there is a certain authoritative person in me, and I think she gets went through the character. So it feels good. You know what is happening actually in my career at the moment is something that touch wood I'm very satisfied with, because I'm getting a whole host of different roles, and that is happening because I think, there is a change that is taking place finally, long overdue, that women in different roles and even senior people like me are getting very interesting parts. Otherwise, earlier the roles for women over 30 almost, particularly in Indian cinema, were almost invisible. And so that's a good thing that is happening.
I'm really glad you mentioned this because I was actually going to bring this up actually later on in our conversation because I feel like, especially during the early stages of your career, it was revolutionary for women to do the roles that are free of patriarchy, and to really stand alone from, I guess, the sort of stigma of society and all of that. So I think it's very liberating to see that. So I presume you're very satisfied with the way female characters are written and presented today, right?
Oh, yes, yes, touch wood, yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I think, it's interesting you mentioned age actually, because I feel like it's always been addressed. I mean, thanks to actors like Nina Gupta, for example, who, also kind of got the ball rolling, I think, when she said that, I'm an actor in Mumbai and I'm looking for work. I think that really did raise a lot of conversations on that. But do you also feel that appropriate casting is very necessary nowadays to retain inclusivity within the Indian film industry?
Well, but that's the choice of the director. There's nothing that you can fight with because directors want to do things like that, and it's fine. But at the moment, for me, the more important debate has been that of the Asian actors who've been asking for colorblind casting. And they have said, why is it the Caucasians get all the best roles? And if Laurence Olivier can play Othello, then why can't it be an Indian or a Chinese or anybody from the world? Why must people only be cast due to their ethnicity? And why is it automatically presumed that the Western, that the Caucasian is the mainstream? So as the world shrinks and becomes a global village, I think it makes not only moral sense but also economic sense that we take people from all over the world. Now that is very evident in Halo, because although I play Admiral Margaret Paragonsky, I I've not been asked to change my my accent or my hair color or my eye color. And we have a Korean in it, we've got an Australian, we've got a Canadian, we've got an English person, we've got African Americans, we've got really representation from all over the world. And none of them are being asked um, to uh, to break out of their ethnicity to do the part. And so that's a very, very happy. And I think the baby steps are being taken in the world, because I believe uh, who was that? The Indian-based American actor who's played David Copperfield.
Oh, Dev Patel. Dev Patel.
Dev Patel. So there are things happening like that. Now, I feel on a lighter note that
Mm,
Indians should have no problem with it at all. Because, I mean, look at the kind of colorblind casting we've been doing. I mean, after all, Danny Dinsongpa has played Shashi Kapoor's brother, and people
true.
have just
True.
accepted it. So
Yeah.
we, in any case, live in a kind of, alternative reality. So for us, it should be an easier thing to do. But I think that because there are actors spread over the world who have their own fan following, so if you include them,
Mm.
then it makes economic sense, because then you are adding on to the fan base of the people who will want to watch it, right?
Right, absolutely. Very true. Very true. I think it must have been a very fascinating experience for you because I mean, Steven Spielberg is one of the executive producers of the show, and Otto Bathurst is directing, and I mean, what a great job he's done with shows like Peaky Blinders. So I think for you to, I mean, how insightful was it for you as an actor to hear about these different perspectives, not just with the showrunners and the director, but also with the cast as well, because I mean this is not the first time you've done an international project. I mean you've done many before, but what was some of the insights that you gained from working with these people?
Well, the fact that really the film set is becoming a microcosm of the world,
Yeah.
because you have people from all over the world, not just actors but also the technicians, and I think that's such a healthy space to
Mm,
be in. So that, and what I really appreciated was right in the early stages when we had the boot camp. uh, we were sat down in an auditorium, and SOPs, uh, standard operating procedures, uh, were sort of discussed at great length, because you are working with different cultures, and
mm,
different things can be interpreted differently by different cultures. And so they were
true.
very clear on how no racist remark would be tolerated, or uh, nothing that could be interpreted as a modesty of a woman being
Mm,
defied. None of that. So I think that was very considerate of them, because it is true that different cultures react to things differently.
mm.
So, because that was a guiding line that was given to all of us, we were very quickly brought on the same page.
Mm, That's amazing, and I can't wait to watch the series. I think it's going to be very fascinating. I mean, I've heard a lot about the game actually, so I think it'll be interesting to see how that game has sort of been translated into a story, into a narrative over a few episodes. I'm looking forward to that actually. Um,
Mhm.
Now, when I did an interview with Ramesh CPG, actually, he said this one thing to me, and it's really stuck with me since. He mentioned something along the lines of that an actor always has to change with the evolving times, otherwise they stay irrelevant. That's one thing that he said, and I really do stick with that, and I kind of really admire that what he said to me. And I think you're a disruptor when it comes to avant-garde developments in Indian cinema. You're one of the driving forces in the rise of parallel cinema, and you've even joined the Indian digital revolution with Kali Kuhi, which is a film I really actually liked on Netflix. So how have you managed to constantly evolve and, I guess, reinvent yourself as an artist over these years?
To be absolutely honest, I have been lucky to be at the right place at the right time. Because, see, when I came first, if I hadn't had Shyam Benegal's Ankur as my first film, and subsequently many films that were recognized as parallel cinema, uh, then my talent, if I had any, could have been a closely regarded secret. Because unless you get the opportunity to display it, how can how can you prove yourself? And so I was very lucky, very, very lucky that with my very first film started the parallel cinema in Hindi. We had it in Bengali. We had Satyajit Ray, we had Mrinal Sen, we had Ritik Khatak and all those people. But you hadn't seen anything like that except for, I think, Bhuvan Shom by Mrinal Sen, which was seen before Ankur. And so I got a chance to play characters that were not normally seen in mainstream cinema. Now, one of the things that I've always said is that there should not be this great schism between mainstream cinema and what was referred to as parallel cinema, because cinema is either good or is bad. Why do you want to categorize it as mainstream or parallel or whatever? And it would be healthy for there to be a two-way interaction. And so I was very early in my career, I started also, doing mainstream films, Fakira, Amar Akbar Anthony, Paki's Parvarish, all these films. But I always thought that there would be a time when there would be an exchange, and this is happening. If you see in mainstream cinema, girls today are doing completely different parts from what they were doing earlier. I mean, for Gangubai, in which Alia is absolutely brilliant. But apart from that, apart from such a woman-oriented film, there are also substantial women that are being seen as the heroines, not somebody who's just dancing around trees. So that change is happening, and I think it's also happening because of the women's movement taking such strong roots in our soil, and that is a good thing. It's a good thing. So it doesn't have to be that every film has to be about women only, but it is the gaze of the filmmaker. What is the gaze of the filmmaker? Is the gaze a patriarchal one, or is it one that is more progressive?
Interesting. Yeah, that is very true. And thankfully, it's wonderful that we are seeing that, and there are roles which are quite literally unsanitized now, and it's people are not fearful of playing such roles, and I think that is definitely a great shift that we're seeing. But I think for any actor, Shabanaji, there's often the threat of being tagged by a particular genre or characteristic that they portray. For example, at a time when Hindi cinema was mostly about the escapism and the larger than life, colorful, really dancey films, you picked up mostly the realistic and rustic movies. And I think they really have lasted and stood the test of time as well. But at that point, did you ever feel a threat, shall I say, of being bracketed or just being considered to be like an art actor, for example? Was there ever that threat or fear in you?
Well, it didn't happen because just remember that straight after Ankur, after the shooting of Ankur, I went into the shooting of Ishq Ishq Ishq. And then immediately my first release mainstream film was Fakira, which became a big hit. And so it was very early in my career that I started doing both kinds of films. So although I recognize that I am identified mainly with the parallel cinema, the fact is that I also was in extremely successful mainstream films. So
True, that,
so it was very lucky that I didn't sort of get stereotyped as the parallel cinema.
Yeah. And I think even films like Masoom also, I think they were quite interesting because they were very craft-based in that sense as well. Like, they had that commercial element to it too, which is very interesting because that was also a nice distinction that we saw with that movie. I mean, that's one of my favorite films of yours. So
yeah. So Masoom or Art or Avatar or all these films had me in substantial parts, not just as an appendage to the hero.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because, I mean, again, Earth is another film which I really, really love of yours. And again, it's painful to see in both the films what your characters go through, and how they break away from a husband who hasn't been loyal to them, and where their life has completely been shattered by this lie. So I guess for you, how challenging, emotionally taxing was it for you as an actor to go through such roles? Because it must be a fear, I think, in anyone's life to go through what they go through.
But very, very, very emotionally taxing. And I remember doing a scene in Earth where I begged my husband, played by Kulbhushan, to take me back and to give me one more chance. And Mahesh, the director, had said that I must fight back my tears because I'm trying to hang on to my dignity, but actually I'm begging. And that's not a very dignified thing to do. And I remember after the scene was over, I continued to cry for almost about an hour
Oh my God.
because I was so deeply shaken by that scene. So it definitely did take its emotional toll, but also became a, a weapon of
Power.
self realization, and also the entire women's movement. My interest in the women's movement started with that film. So it was a greatly learning experience also.
That is interesting. And now we're seeing films like Thappar and The Great Indian Kitchen as well transpire. So I guess it's great to see how, we're seeing such movies come as well. But I think it's really interesting because you mentioned how about removing the barriers of being it commercial and being parallel cinema. And it's wonderful with OTT content rising nowadays and obviously cinemas reopening. I think to what extent would you say, Shabana ji, that is cinema really that united now when it comes to differing styles? Is it like an open playing field now, a level playing field, do you think?
Yeah, to a much, much greater extent. But then the pay parity is still an issue. And so there is that level playing field up to a point, yes, but still more needs to be done, I guess.
Right, right. And I think you've always tried to do roles that are fearless. I think, like we've mentioned, I mean, whether it's accepting the identity in films like Fire, which again is such a huge trailblazer in the history of Indian cinema, or rising above oppression in a title like Mrityudan, for example. Um, what has developed that fighting spirit within you, I think, in life generally?
Well, I grew up in a family that believed art should be used as an instrument for social change. And my father, in his work as a poet and as a writer, uh, wrote about progressive issues. My mother, as an actor, whether it was with Prithvi Theatre or whether it was with IPTA,
Hmm.
did what was called meaningful theatre. And so it was a kind of legacy that I got. And then I also went to the Film Institute where I was exposed to international cinema, European cinema, all of which fascinated me and was so different
Hmm.
from what was available in India at that time. Now, at least we get to see a lot of films. At that time, there was no chance.
Hmm. Hmm. I really like what you shared to me about Earth actually, and that whole experience of what you went through. But how, and I also believe that being emotionally broken and vulnerable is quite important for the whole creative process when it comes to acting. So how do you internalize pain through the art and craft of acting?
Because I was trained in Stanislavski's method acting, so I was trained to rely on what is, in his words, emotional memory. So one does go through pain, one does go through hurt, and it doesn't have to be identical hurt. It doesn't have to be identical pain, but you can recall the emotion of pain.
Hmm.
And so when you're playing these characters, a time can come when you can refer to that memory.
Hmm.
But what is very important is at the time, you need to remember that memory only to connect emotionally with it. But when you're doing the scene, it's the scene that
Hmm.
should trigger off the response. You can't be playing one scene and taking uh, your resource from another. You can take it during the rehearsal period, but at that moment, it's the truth of the moment that an actor has to play.
Hmm.
There can be no other way that an actor can play a part. You have to play the truth of the moment.
Hmm. Right, absolutely. That's really wonderful. And I think if there was perhaps if you do reflect back on your career and if we reflect back on the years that you've worked, what would you say has been? I mean, I'm probably sure you've been asked this many a time, but what would you say has been the most toughest role for you to crack? That even now it still gives you goosebumps just thinking about it.
Well, certain skills that one had to learn. I mean, I'm not a Carnatic singer, and I had to uh, learn how to do extensive rags in a film called Morning Raga.
Ah, Morning Raga. Yes.
And Morning Raga, and I have this husband who constantly pushes me to raise my bars. And he had told me very strictly that there is no point doing this film if you don't get the singing correct. And if you can't do it in one shot, if you're going to cheat and they'll have to break it into very many shots, then there's no point. So it was very tough for me because I just got 18 days of rehearsing what was very intricate, very difficult. And there was a time when I felt so frustrated and I said, I'm never going to get this right again. And then I'd get up in the morning and I'd say, oh my God, I've got it. I was member of parliament at that time. I was going to parliament. I had got my uh, coach, who was a young violinist,
Hmm.
who taught me. And it was at the end of the film very rewarding because I had Pandit Ravi Shankar, I had
Wow.
Shankar Mahadevan, I had Alka Yagnik, I had all kinds of music people ringing me up and said that I'd convinced them that I was a Carnatic singer. So that was such a huge compliment.
Wow, that is incredible. Wow, that's wonderful. I mean, what a great story to hear. I mean, that's amazing. And it's wonderful how you revisit the classical sacred Indian dance forms as well, like in a film like Meeraksam, which again was such a great film. I mean, I think it's arguably one of the best dance films we've ever had, I think, in Indian cinema history.
How
And
wonderful. How
and I'm
wonderful.
and I'm saying this from a very honest space when I say that.
I'm so happy. I'm so delighted.
No, absolutely. But I think on a final-ish note as well, I mean, when it comes to reuniting with fellow colleagues from the past, Shabana ji, I mean, you've recently worked with Dharmendra in Rocky or Rani ki Prem Kahani. And I think, if I'm not wrong, this is actually your first time working with Jaya Bachchan also, I think, on
Yes.
screen, right?
Yes.
First
Yes.
time. I mean, speak to me about that experience because I saw, I think, one of the video that I think Karan Johar had shared on social media, and it was really nice to see you having a good laugh with Dharamji and Jayadi. So tell me about that experience. How has it been like working with them after all these years?
Because I have worked with Dharamji in a film called Mardon Wali Baat
Yes.
for Bridge. And then we did a half aborted film for Sai Paranjpe called Bichu, which Dharamji was producing, but unfortunately didn't get completed. And so it was lovely to meet up with him. Jaya, I've always had an extremely affectionate relationship with, and we play antagonists in the film. So that's interesting that in real life we get along really well, and here we were supposed to give each other nasty looks through the thing, but that's what acting is all about. And that
Interesting.
was very interesting. Then I'm doing a film called Ghoomer by R.
Yes.
Balki,
Mm-hmm.
and in which I'm playing a cricket lover, and my entire relationship with cricket is such that I am absolutely superstitious that if India is playing and if I look at the TV screen, immediately somebody gets caught out.
Oh
So,
God.
so, so even if I enter a room when the rest of the family and everybody is watching, I'm made to sit with my back to the TV screen. So अब now let's see वो जो पनवती है वो टूटती है कि नहीं इसके
Yeah, yeah,
साथ.
definitely. Absolutely. And it's really great because you're working with your niece as well, Sayami, in that.
Yes, Ayami, yeah, yeah. And she's really somebody who loves cricket and has done so far a really marvelous.
Yeah,
Uh,
every time I've spoken with her, she's always said she's wanted to do a sports-oriented style of
yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is something really, really lovely. And Anuj, I've just watched What's Love Got to Do with It.
Yes.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah. How was that
it's
experience?
it's such a lovely film. And Emma Thompson, I'm completely in love with Emma Thompson, and she's so lovely in the film, and so is Lily James. I mean, I really enjoyed the film. It's a rom-com.
Yes.
It's a rom-com, but I expect that the film has come at the right time, and people will be very happy to watch it.
And plus,
And
you're
we shot in the height of COVID, and
true.
I remember when I came here, I think I came on the 3rd of January, and my family was convinced that by 5th January I'd be back in India. But we actually completed the film in 48 days, which was,
Whoa.
and it was a very, very tight bubble. We were tested every single day. It was bitterly cold, all of that, but it just turned out to be a lovely, lovely experience.
And plus, you're reuniting with Shekhar Kapoor after so many years.
Yes,
A complete 360-degree turn from what Masoom was. I mean,
yes,
for
yeah.
various reasons. And the fact that again it's an international project. So again, there must have been a lot of nostalgic memories, I'm sure, with between you and Shekhar as well. I mean,
Yeah,
oh,
but Shekhar is really a very good director, and I think he loves his actors a great deal. He's very gentle with his actors, and but he knows exactly what he wants, and so he'll push you to give what he wants, but he does it in a very gentle uh, way.
mm,
And it's it's a good script. It's a good script by Jemima, and it's wonderfully acted by everybody. And so is Shekhar's work is really good. It's got some good music. So I hope it's going to do well. I think
yeah.
it should be released by summer.
Yeah, I've heard that's what I've heard too. But it's interesting as well, because Rocky and Rani ki Prem Kahani. I know you and Karan have actually always wanted to do a film together. Like, in fact, I remember My Name Is Khan ke jab waqt pe, I think you were supposed to do Zarina Wahab's role
How do
actually.
you know this now? Oh my God. Are wow.
Journalist never reveals his sources like a magician never reveals his tricks. नहीं नहीं नहीं. I सुनने में आया था. I read up on IMDb and it was written in the trivia section there.
Okay, okay.
Interestingly, also in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai as well ke waqt par, I also remember he mentioned this in interviews that you scrutinized him because of the plot and of the storyline. So, I mean, working with Karan as well for a film which again seems to be a very family drama of what he began his career with, and then also working with, current stars of our generation like Ranveer and Alia. So, talk me through that whole experience of that genre and exploring that with Karan and Ranveer and Alia too.
Well, Karan is a very easy director to work with on the set. He's very patient. He keeps his humor. He doesn't lose his temper. He's very nice to everybody. And it's a very happy, happy atmosphere. Ranveer is a very hardworking actor. He's like so hardworking, I can't tell you. And uh, Alia really consider my bacha because she's Mahesh's daughter, and Mahesh and I've had such a precious relationship, and she's such a lovely actress. She's so nice. So far, we haven't completed the film. We also got struck by COVID, and so January we were supposed to do a very long schedule, and both Jaya and I ended up getting COVID, and so that was delayed for a bit. But within the Karan Johar formula, it still has some special things to say. So I think he's pushing the buttons within the mainstream commercial cinema.
Okay, so it's not going to be the quintessential family drama like he's done before, like Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham. It's not.
No, it is a family drama, but not sentimental.
Interesting. That is
Hmm.
very interesting. Well, I mean, Shabana, I mean, what a great phase this is. I mean, this is so brilliant. I mean, you've got back-to-back exciting titles coming your way. And, again, in 2020, which was such a big year, I think, also for you, because that was your first stint as well as a producer with Meeraksam as well. Baba
That's
sir
right.
had, directed, that was his directorial debut. Then obviously did Kali Kuhi, and now you've got these back-to-back releases. I mean, बोलते बोलते मैं थक रहा हूँ. I mean, आप तो मतलब काम कर रहे हो. So it's brilliant. No, but it's
Okay.
amazing. And I'm just glad to see this phase. And it's always such a pleasure to see you and speak with you, Shabana ji. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for taking the time out to meet me, to speak with me, and wishing you all the very best for Halo and upcoming projects.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you. Bye
much.
bye.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
Shabana
Jeete
ji.
raho.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye.